Yeah, North was best known as the mischief maker on the show Dennis the Menace. Next to his starring role in the 1959 sitcom, a longtime friend said North died at home Sunday following a battle with cancer.
One day, they were everywhere. On every screen, on every magazine cover, on every television in every home across America. Tiny faces that the whole world recognized. Voices that made millions of people smile. They were the brightest stars Hollywood had ever seen. Then they were simply gone. No farewell. Just here one moment, and completely vanished the next, as if Hollywood had swallowed them whole and forgotten to spit them back out. What really happened to these beloved little stars? And why did so many of them disappear without a single trace? Join us as we uncover the shocking and heartbreaking truth behind 25 of Hollywood's most forgotten child stars. Number 25. Bobby Driscoll. Bobby Driscoll had the kind of face that made people smile. He was Disney's biggest child star, the voice of Peter Pan, and the boy every kid in America wanted to be. Studios loved him. Cameras loved him. The whole world seemed to love him. Then he grew up. Disney let him go when puberty changed his voice and his face. The jobs stopped coming. The phone stopped ringing. Bobby turned to substance to dull the pain, and the substance took everything he had left. He drifted from city to city, broke and forgotten by the industry that had built him. He died alone in an abandoned New York building at just 31 years old. Nobody knew who he was. He was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave before anyone figured out his name. Disney's golden boy had vanished without a single goodbye. But Bobby's story was not the only one that began in joy and ended in silence. The next child star rose even earlier and fell just as hard. Number 24. Scotty Beckett. Before television existed, Scotty Beckett was already famous. He was one of the beloved kids in our gang, the little comedy series that made children laugh all across America. Scotty had big eyes, a cheeky grin, and more natural charm than most adults twice his age. Then, his father died. That loss cracked something open inside Scotty that never fully healed. He tried to keep acting into adulthood, but the roles got smaller and the pain got bigger. He started drinking. He got arrested. His marriages fell apart, one after another. The boy, who had made millions of children happy, could not find a single drop of happiness for himself. He died at 38 years old from a barbiturate overdose, alone and far from the spotlight that had once followed him everywhere. Scotty's story is one of loss and grief that nobody caught in time, but the next star on our list suffered a different kind of pain, one hiding right behind the cameras where nobody could see it. Number 23. Jay North. Every child in America thought Jay North had the perfect life. He played Dennis the Menace on television, the lovable troublemaker who made families laugh every single week. He was cute, funny, and famous before he was old enough to understand what famous even meant. But behind the cameras, things were very different. Jay later revealed that the adults around him were emotionally cruel and controlling. The happy little boy on screen was quietly suffering where no camera could find him. When the show ended, the jobs disappeared almost overnight. Jay was a child star without childhood memories he wanted to keep. He spent many long years trying to rebuild himself outside Hollywood, doing hard and honest work, learning to live as a regular person again. Jay North survived, and that matters more than any television credit ever could. Sadly, the next star on our list carried his pain even longer and never truly found a way out. Number 22. Rusty Hamer. Rusty Hamer lit up television screens as Danny Thomas's lovable son on Make Room for Daddy. He was funny, warm, and completely natural in front of the camera. Audiences adored him. For years, he was exactly where he wanted to be. Then the show ended. Rusty tried everything to keep acting as an adult, but casting directors could not see past the little boy they remembered. The doors kept closing. The silence stretched on for years. Without the work he loved, Rusty struggled deeply. He battled alcoholism and fell into a long, heavy depression that nobody around him knew how to help. At 42 years old, Rusty Hamer died by self-harm. He was not old. He was not forgotten by the people who had loved him. He simply could not find a way through the darkness that fame had left behind. The next child star faced a different kind of loss. One measured not in heartbreak, but in stolen dollars and broken trust. Number 21. Baby Peggy. Long before talking pictures existed, a tiny girl named Peggy Jean Montgomery became one of the biggest stars in the world. She was called Baby Peggy, and by the time she was 4 years old, she was earning more money than most grown adults could ever dream of. But Peggy never saw a single dollar of it. The studios paid the money to her father, and her father spent it all. She worked under exhausting conditions, performing on command like the world's most famous little doll. When the silent film era ended, so did her career. She was a millionaire who owned nothing. Most people would have given up. Peggy did not. She rebuilt her life slowly and quietly, becoming a respected writer and a powerful voice for child actors who came after her. She fought to make sure other children would be protected in ways she never was. Baby Peggy lost everything once. She refused to lose twice, and that spirit of fighting back connects perfectly to the next child star, a boy whose own family stole from him and who changed Hollywood law forever because of it. Number 20. Jackie Coogan. Jackie Coogan was the first child superstar Hollywood ever created. He acted alongside Charlie Chaplin as a tiny boy, and audiences around the world fell completely in love with him. He earned millions of dollars before he was old enough to ride a bicycle without help. Then, he found out the truth. His own mother and stepfather had spent almost every single dollar he had ever earned. The mansions, the furs, the lavish parties, all of it paid for with Jackie's money while he was too young to stop them. When he sued his own family to get it back, the courts could do almost nothing. There was no law to protect him. So Jackie fought to create one. The Coogan Law was born, a legal rule that forced studios to protect child actors' earnings going forward. His betrayal became a shield for thousands of children who came after him. Jackie lost his fortune, but gave every future child star something worth far more. The next kid won Hollywood's highest honor as a teenager, yet still had battles waiting that no golden statue could ever prepare her for. Number 19. Patty Duke. Patty Duke was only 16 years old when she won an Academy Award. That made her one of the youngest winners in Oscar history, and the whole world expected nothing but greatness from her after that. She was talented, determined, and impossible to ignore. But behind the bright lights, Patty was quietly falling apart. She had been controlled by manipulative managers since she was a very small child. As she grew older, wild mood swings and emotional storms made her life feel completely out of control. For years, she did not understand why. Then came the diagnosis that changed everything. Patty had bipolar disorder, a condition affecting how the brain manages feelings and energy. Instead of hiding it, she talked about it loudly and without shame. she became one of the most important mental health voices in America, turning her own pain into a lifeline for millions of others. Patty Duke arrived in Hollywood as a performer. She left it as something far greater. The next star also walked away from the spotlight, but his reasons had more to do with handcuffs than health before he quietly rebuilt everything from scratch. Number 18. Tommy Rettig. Every child in America knew Tommy Rettig as the loyal, kind-hearted boy who ran through open fields with television's most famous dog. Lassie made Tommy a household name before he was 10 years old, and the whole country watched him grow up right there on their screens. But growing up on screen is not the same as growing up well. When the show moved on without him, Tommy struggled badly. Substance problems crept into his life, and arrests followed not long after. The clean-cut boy that families had invited into their living rooms every week was now making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Hollywood had no interest in helping him find his way back. So Tommy found his own way. He taught himself computer programming at a time when almost nobody understood what computers could do. He built a quiet, respectable career in technology and left the chaos of fame behind for good. Tommy Rettig proved that a stumble does not have to be the end of the story. Someone else never got the chance to write a second chapter, and that is the part of his story that hurts the most. Number 17. Brandon DeWilde. Brandon DeWilde was the kind of child actor that made other actors nervous. He was that good. His heartbreaking performance in Shane earned him an Academy Award nomination as a child. And everything about his talent suggested a long and brilliant career stretching out ahead of him. He was only just getting started as an adult when it all stopped. At 30 years old, Brandon was killed in a car accident near Denver, Colorado. It was sudden, senseless, and utterly devastating to everyone who had watched him grow from a gifted little boy into a genuinely promising man. Hollywood lost something real that day, not just a name on a poster, but a talent that had barely begun to show what it could do. We will never know what Brandon DeWilde might have become. That unknown future is its own kind of sadness. Some losses come from accidents. Some come slowly over years. The next child star experienced the slower kind, a long, quiet fading that ended in a cruel and painful illness. Number 16. Johnny Crawford. Johnny Crawford had everything a young performer could want. He played Mark McCain, the devoted son on The Rifleman, and American families absolutely adored him. He was so popular that he even launched a singing career on the side, scoring real hits on the charts while still a teenager. Life after childhood fame was quieter, but Johnny handled it with grace. He kept working in smaller roles, embraced his nostalgia following, and later led a beloved dance orchestra that performed classic music from earlier eras. He seemed to have found genuine peace and purpose well beyond the reach of Hollywood's usual traps. Then Alzheimer's disease arrived and took the brightness from him slowly. His wife cared for him with deep devotion as the illness progressed. Johnny Crawford died in 2021, remembered warmly by everyone who had grown up watching him on screen. His ending was gentle compared to many other child stars. The next child star never lost his money to illness or addiction. He lost it to the very family members who were supposed to keep it safe. Number 15. Freddie Bartholomew. Freddie Bartholomew was one of the most recognizable faces on Earth during the 1930s. MGM dressed him in velvet suits, gave him the grandest roles, and placed him alongside the biggest stars in Hollywood. Children everywhere wanted to be him. Parents everywhere adored him. But the adults around Freddie were fighting over him like he was a prize to be won. His parents, his aunt, and various relatives all launched legal battles to control his earnings and his life. The court cases dragged on for years, swallowing enormous amounts of the money he had worked so hard to earn. By the time the fighting stopped, much of his fortune was simply gone. Freddie did not collapse under the weight of it. He moved into television advertising, built a steady career, and lived a grounded and respectable life far from the chaos of his childhood. He lost the money, but kept his dignity, and that turned out to be worth more. The next star on our list never lost his dignity either, though he certainly lost almost everything else along the way, more than once. Number 14. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney was simply unstoppable. As a child and teenager, he was the #1 box office star in the entire world, outranking everyone around him. He could act, sing, dance, and make audiences laugh until their sides ached. Hollywood had never seen energy quite like his before. But fame at that level comes with a very long shadow. Mickey married 8 times. He spent money faster than even he could earn it. Financial troubles followed him through decades of his adult life, and the industry that had once placed him at its very top slowly forgot how much it owed him. In his final years, he spoke openly about being a victim of elder financial abuse at the hands of people close to him. He kept performing almost until the very end, because performing was the only world he had ever truly known. Mickey Rooney gave Hollywood everything he had. Hollywood did not always give it back. Another child star decided very early that Hollywood was simply not worth the trouble, and walked away before it could take anything from her. Number 13. Gloria Jean. Gloria Jean had a voice that could stop a room completely. Universal Studios signed her as a young teenager and positioned her as the next great musical sensation. For a while, it looked like they might be right. She was talented, charming, and genuinely loved by the audiences who discovered her. Then the world's tastes simply shifted, and Gloria was left standing in a spotlight that had already moved on. Rather than chase a fading career through desperation and poor decisions, Gloria Jean did something quietly remarkable. She walked away. She found work outside the entertainment industry, lived modestly, and built an ordinary life that made her genuinely happy. No scandals, no headlines, no tragedy. She showed the world that knowing when to leave is its own form of wisdom, and that a peaceful life is never something to be ashamed of. Not every Hollywood ending needs to involve heartbreak. The next child star agrees completely, though his exit from the spotlight was so sudden and so total that it left fans wondering for decades where he had gone. Number 12. Martin Stevens. Martin Stevens had an unusual gift. He could be deeply, quietly unsettling on screen in a way that most adult actors could never manage. His performances in classic British horror films gave audiences genuine chills and earned him a reputation as one of the most talented young actors of his generation. Then at 16 years old, he simply stopped. Martin Stevens walked away from acting while he was still very much in demand, chose education over fame, and built a private life that he protected carefully for decades. The film world buzzed with questions about where he had gone and why, but Martin offered very few answers. He became an architect. He raised a family. He lived quietly and happily in a world that had nothing to do with cameras or studios or applause. For Martin Stevens, disappearing was not a tragedy. It was a choice, and it was entirely his to make. The next star made exactly the same choice, though she did it from an even greater height, and the whole of Hollywood was left completely speechless. Number 11. Deanna Durbin. Deanna Durbin did not just appear in movies. She literally saved a studio. Universal Pictures was on the edge of bankruptcy when her films arrived and pulled the whole company back from the brink. She was beloved across the entire world, a genuine superstar in every possible sense of the word. And then one day, she decided she had simply had enough. At the height of her fame, while audiences were still filling cinemas just to hear her sing, Diana quietly stepped away. She moved to rural France with her husband, settled into a small and simple life, and refused almost every interview request that came her way for the rest of her long life. She grew vegetables, she read books, she enjoyed her privacy like it was the greatest treasure she had ever found. Hollywood searched for her story for decades and found almost nothing, because Deanna Durbin gave them nothing to find. Another child star also left Hollywood by choice, but he traded the silver screen for naval service and built a completely different kind of legacy. Number 10. Claude Jarman Jr. Claude Jarman Jr. won a Special Academy Award as a child for his deeply moving performance in The Yearling. Critics adored him. Studios wanted him. The future looked wide open and full of possibility for the quiet, serious young boy from Tennessee. But Claude was watching everything around him very carefully. He saw what happened to child stars who stayed too long, who chased a flame that kept moving just out of reach. He chose a different road entirely. He joined the United States Navy, served his country with pride, and returned to civilian life with a sense of purpose that Hollywood could never have given him. He later built a successful career working behind the scenes in film production and became a respected figure in the San Francisco arts community. He left on his own terms and never once seemed to regret the decision. Claude Jarman Jr. understood something rare and valuable. Knowing when to walk away is its own kind of talent. Another child star found his second act, but not in military service or business, but in the quiet and deeply personal world of writing. Number 9. Dickie Moore. Dickie Moore appeared in over 100 films before most children had appeared in anything at all. He worked alongside some of the greatest stars of Hollywood's golden age, and held his own against every single one of them. By any measure, his childhood career was extraordinary. But Dickie Moore always seemed to understand that acting was something he did, not something he was. When his time in front of the camera naturally wound down, he did not panic or grasp at fading opportunities. He reinvented himself thoughtfully and completely. He became a respected author, writing a deeply honest book about the experience of being a child star. He also built a successful career as a writing coach, helping others find their own voices and tell their own stories. Dickie Moore turned his unusual childhood into wisdom, and then shared that wisdom as generously as he could. He proved that the most interesting chapter of a life does not always come first. The next child star also found beauty and peace beyond the spotlight, though her journey back to ordinary life came with its own quiet set of challenges. Number 8. Margaret O'Brien. Margaret O'Brien could cry on cue before she was old enough to read a full chapter book. MGM recognized her gift immediately and built films around her enormous natural talent. She won a Special Academy Award as a child performer and stood comfortably alongside Judy Garland as an absolute equal on screen. Then adolescence arrived, as it always does, and the roles began to disappear. Studios that had once competed for Margaret's attention simply moved on to younger faces without a backwards glance. It was a familiar and painful pattern that had already claimed so many talented children before her. But Margaret did not let the loss define her. She stepped back from the chaos of professional performing, built a warm and loving family life, and carried her memories of Hollywood with grace and genuine fondness rather than bitterness. She remained connected to classic film communities for the rest of her life, celebrated and cherished by those who remembered exactly how luminous she had once been. The next child star never really left the industry at all. He simply walked around to the other side of the camera and found something he loved even more. Number 7. Kevin Corcoran. Kevin Corcoran was one of Disney's most dependable young stars during the late 1950s and early 1960s. He appeared in beloved films like Old Yeller and Pollyanna, playing energetic and mischievous boys that audiences found completely irresistible. Disney loved him. Families loved him even more. But Kevin was always watching the people behind the cameras, the directors, the producers, the assistant directors, moving quietly around every set. That world fascinated him far more than acting ever had. When his performing days wound down, Kevin moved behind the camera without hesitation. He built a long and respected career as a producer and assistant director, working steadily in television for decades, contributing to projects millions enjoyed without ever knowing his name. Kevin Corcoran loved movies enough to serve them from the inside. The next child star also found her greatest power behind the scenes, building something far bigger than any single performance. Number 6. Bonita Granville. Bonita Granville received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress at just 13 years old. That kind of recognition would have turned most heads completely. Bonita simply took note and kept moving forward with clear and steady eyes. She acted through her teenage years and into early adulthood, but what came next truly defined her story. Bonita married television producer Jack Rather, and together they built an entertainment empire that included the Lassie franchise. She became a powerful executive producer at a time when very few women held that authority anywhere in the industry. She did not just survive Hollywood, she learned exactly how it worked and quietly took control of a significant piece of it. Bonita Granville walked into the film world as a talented child and walked out as a genuine power broker. Another child star also walked away with everything intact by making one wonderfully sensible decision at exactly the right moment. Number 5. John Provost. John Provost spent years running through fields as Timmy on Lassie, one of the most watched television programs in American history. Children across the country grew up alongside him. Parents trusted him completely. He was safe, familiar, and genuinely beloved in living rooms everywhere. And when the time came to stop, John simply stopped. No desperate clinging to a fading career. No poor decisions born from fear. John Provost walked away from Lassie, enrolled in college, got his education, and built a full and satisfying life beyond Hollywood's complicated embrace. He later wrote warmly about his experiences, attended fan conventions with obvious pleasure, and remained genuinely grateful for the unusual childhood he had lived. John Provost is proof that a happy childhood in Hollywood does not have to cost you everything else. The next child star found the same quiet happiness through an even smoother and more remarkably drama-free path. Number 4. Beverly Washburn. Beverly Washburn worked steadily throughout her entire childhood without landing in a single headline for the wrong reasons. She appeared in films and television consistently, delivered solid performances every time, and navigated an industry famous for destroying young people with her spirit completely intact. That sounds simple, except it was anything but simple. Hollywood during Beverly's era was full of manipulative adults, impossible pressures, and very few protections for the children caught inside the machine. The fact that Beverly emerged healthy, grounded, and free of serious damage is genuinely remarkable and deserves far more recognition than it usually receives. She transitioned naturally into adult life without crisis or collapse, and remained a warm and appreciated presence in classic television communities for many years. Beverly Washburn did everything right, in a place that makes doing things right extraordinarily difficult. But some other star took a slightly longer road to contentment, but arrived with his famous smile completely undamaged. Number 3. Jerry Mathers. Jerry Mathers played Beaver Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver, one of the most iconic American television programs ever made. His face became as familiar and comforting to American families as Sunday dinner and front porch summers. Everyone loved him completely. But Jerry was smart enough to know that could not last forever. When the show ended, he stepped away, focused on his education, and built a solid career in business that had nothing to do with cameras or studios. He lived quietly, raised a family, and let the world move on without chasing it. Then something lovely happened. The world came back to him. He returned to performing on his own terms and became one of the most cheerful ambassadors for the golden age of American television. Jerry Mathers left Hollywood once. He returned because he wanted to, and that made all the difference. The next child star never needed to return because she simply grew up and became something even more extraordinary. Number 2. Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple was not just the biggest child star in Hollywood history. During the darkest years of the Great Depression, she lifted an entire nation's spirits with her curls, her dimples, and her completely unstoppable joy. Presidents sought her company. The whole world watched her dance. Then she grew up and did it all again in an entirely different world. Shirley Temple Black became a United States ambassador, representing her country with intelligence and genuine distinction. She served in Ghana and Czechoslovakia, worked for the United Nations, and was appointed Chief of Protocol of the United States. The little girl who once saved movie studios went on to help shape foreign policy for the most powerful nation on Earth. Shirley Temple proved that a remarkable beginning is simply the foundation for an even more remarkable life. Our final child star was a woman who understood that from the very start, what Hollywood was all about. Number 1. June Lockhart. June Lockhart began her life in show business the way most people only dream of. She came from a theatrical family, stepped onto the screen as a child with natural confidence, and simply never stopped working. No traumatic break, no desperate reinvention, no years lost to heartbreak or stolen fortune. June just kept going. She transitioned from child actress to respected adult performer without missing a single step, eventually becoming a television icon through Lassie and Lost in Space. Generations grew up with her warmth in their living rooms. She built one of the longest, most dignified, and most genuinely joyful careers Hollywood has ever produced, proving it is entirely possible to grow up inside the entertainment industry with your heart, your health, and your happiness completely intact. June. Lockhart did not survive Hollywood. She mastered it, and she made it look absolutely effortless. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.